Hey guys, today I'm going to go over the equity module. I'll tell you how it works and how to use it. So the basic idea is that you enter two ranges, one for each player, and here I will load some ranges from my lab. I will load the min race range and the flat min race range, and then you hit calculate and it'll tell you how often the first range wins against the second range, so almost 51% of the time. And the way this is implemented is that it simulates all possible board runouts for all possible hand matchups while counting wins, losses, and ties. And in addition to the overall equity here, it'll also keep track of the equities of the individual starting hands in each range. And it'll draw a equity distribution graph, which we'll go over later. Now, this is usually used in one of four ways. The first and most common way is to calculate equities in all-in situations, both pre and post-flop. So for example, if I want to know how often pair wins against two overcards, I give first player pair, second player some overcards, hit calculate, and we see the pair is about a 1% favorite. Or if we're in the flop and we want to see how well top pair does against a flush draw, we'll put a flush draw on the board, give the first player let's give him clubs, two of hearts, and the second player gets top pair, and let's make it king, three of hearts, hit calculate, and we see the top pair is about a 4% favorite. The second way is to get an approximation of your pot equity, for example, when deciding whether to defend your big blind. This can be useful, but you need to remember that even though a hand might have pretty good equity, it may not be possible to realize that equity when there's post-flop play. So for example, let's have a look at how 4-3 offsuit does against a very strong range. Just tens plus and broadways. And we see that 4-3 offsuit actually has 32% equity, which seems like a lot. But in actual play, it's not going to win anywhere near that often in most games. The third way is to get a rough idea of how hard a flop hits a given preflop range. So let's have another look at our flat min raise and min raising ranges. And let's put in a flop of Jack 10, 9. And see what the tool tells us. So if we look at the ranges here, we see a very wide min-raising range pre-flop, and then a defending range, which is stronger but has the strongest parts removed because we assume that the player would 3-bet those holdings. Now traditionally or intuitively, you might think that a flop like this hits this range a lot harder than it hits this range, but from an equity perspective, the equity is exactly 50%. So there's no difference. The fourth way is to look at equity distributions post-flop. In practice, this usually requires fairly well-defined ranges. Let's give ourselves ace king of hearts, and let's say the turn came ace of spades. So we'll say ace king of hearts for player 1, clear player 2 for now, and ace of spades on the turn. Now, our opponent checked off turn, and we're wondering whether to call. Let's start by putting him on a range. Now, in this example, we'll give our opponent some 2-pair hands and some draws. So we'll give him queen jack, queen 10, queen 9, jack 10, jack 9, jack 8, 10, 9, 10, 8, 9, 8, and the offsuit hands as well. Jack 10, jack 9, jack 8, 10, 9, 10, 8, 9, 8. We'll hit calculate, and we see that our equity is 65%. Now we can get some additional information from the equity distribution graph. So if we click on the graph here, we see how equity is distributed in villain's range. So villain essentially has two kinds of hands, either hands that have us totally crush over 70% equity, or hands that have only about 20% equity. And then just a few hands in the middle here that have about 40%. So here, for example, we might want to rely on timing or live tells to determine whether we call, because we're either way ahead or way behind. Okay, so that's it for the equity module. While it is pretty basic and has some limitations, it's still one of the fundamental building blocks of poker strategy. And it's also available for free to all users. So have a great day, best of luck at the tables, cheers and goodbye.